And so today's topic is a hot one. And, you know, we're talking about how do you know it's time? You know, think about the situation where you're with your spouse or your significant other, and you're making moves together. Everything is going well, but those conversations start to get a little bit more serious in your walk with your significant other. So the question on the table, fellas, is how do you know that it's time to move in? When do you know? And how do you know it's time to move in?
That's heavy, Jimmy Mack.
That's a big one, man. Man, for some of us, man, I mean, we may know, just by the look that she gives us. I mean, that's Speak on it, bro. Speak on sometimes it may just be that look, but on a serious note, man, I think it's a case by case, individualized basis as far as knowing when. But I think once it's certainly, at least for me, it was an innate feeling. It was something that you have to feel, within yourself, and you feel within your heart to know, because that's an undertaking that you have to take on. So I think that it's really like in the progression of relationships and the progression of your situation, whatever it may be, you kind of reach a certain point where that in order for me to get to that next step, here's where we need to be. We need to start looking at or considering moving in. We need to start considering a home or an apartment, or introducing ourselves to each other's families and things like that. So as far as when, I think it's a hard question to really answer specifically, because it's more of a feeling, so that's kind of how, I mean, in my case, it was a gut feeling, and it was something where it was like, all right, well, in order for us to get to the next step, this is what needs to be done. This is what needs to happen. And so that's what worked out for me and mine, and I wouldn't change it any other way.
That's dope, Mike. And to kind of piggyback off of what you said, my situation was a little bit, different. I was working on the railroad. Finally bought my first house. I was working in Macon, Georgia, commuting all the way to Riverdale, Georgia. So.
Shout out to Macon, though, man.
Right, yeah, Mactown. Bought my first house. Started dating my wife, and my schedule was so crazy and hectic, man. It was making it hard for us to, have that time. It was definitely hit or miss. So a lot of the times it would just be her having stuff over here, and we just, spending that little time that we could, because she already had things here that, it made it an easier transition. So over time, you just get to thinking like, well, she's already pretty much here all the time. Like, we might well go ahead and make this thing official. And it's just, for me, it was just like, I love having her around. It just seems right. It's like a natural fit. This to me seems like the next step, Yeah. And, we had been talking for maybe like a year or so, not even maybe less than a year or so in that time period, a year or less. And I was just like, you know what? It just feels like the right time, man, because we building, you know what I'm saying? And for us to make our unit stronger, I think this is the next step that we need to take. And we was in agreement with that. And it just, we just took off from there.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. I didn't know that, Zay. So, I mean, how was that, I guess, being a homeowner, on your own, and making the decision to shack up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Not to get too far off the subject matter, man, but I always something I aspired to have. Like, me and my mom, it's always just been me and her. One of her biggest goals in life is always to be a homeowner. Yeah. So it was always ingrained in me. When I got the opportunity to do that for myself, I would jump on it. And when I moved back here, finally got a chance to move back to Georgia in my career, I was like, okay, I know this is what I want to do. I want to set up roots here. I want to get a house here, get a home here.
Yeah.
Fast forward to meet my wife, dating and courting and stuff like that. Just felt like, she was a person that I wanted to, share this life with, kind of going back to what you said, man. It was just, and then, when you're dating and, everybody, sees the progression y'all making, it becomes that, that pressure moment. Like when are y'all gonna do, like, come on, man, like when are y'all gonna make this thing official and do things like that? And for me, it just started out with little things. She bring toothbrushes, she bring clothes over. And eventually you just wake up and be like, man, basically she living here, ain't she? So I might want to just make this thing official, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be comfortable in a relationship. I don't want you having to pack stuff up, hauling stuff back and forth, and this is what we on the same page, so it's just like, look, hey, you might want to stay here. What's going on? Right. And it was one of the best decisions of my life.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That's a beautiful thing, man. Jimmy Mack, Mark, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's
I'm gonna let Mark take it, man. But so Sadria was like marking her territory, right? That's what was that.
Hey, man, and I'm gonna put it like this. I'm gonna hear your story and I'm gonna hear Mark's story, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna have some undertones of that too. But something was left, whether it's a toothbrush, a scrunchie, something was left at your house. It's like, all right, she got a reason to come back over here and get this. So
go ahead, Mark.
Ooh, there you go. No, man, great stories, bro. I mean, mine has some similarities, but like with me and my wife, man, we met in college and became friends first, right, before we went to that next level. So I got to see her get her first apartment, and I got my first apartment, so we was talking and kind of going from there. And as jobs build up and careers build up, right, you start seeing the progression of the individual. You start seeing, okay, finances starting to roll in the right place. And then again, it's just a natural progression. And, you just kind of get to a point and say, hey, we like being around each other. We know each other for years at this point. That's just the next step, bro.
Yeah.
You had that conversation. Like it's not necessarily time one, kind of like what Mike was saying, everybody has their own individual, mindset of you just don't have that gut feeling. So, okay, we're comfortable, we're ready, so it's going to take that next step. And, we did when we got the apartment, man. And, and there we stayed in there for almost 2 years, bro. And then when we got to that point, I mean, we just kind of, hey, what's next?
Yeah.
So it just, you start talking about buying, Zayton buying a home. So that was a goal for us from the get-go. Cause like I saw my mom instilled in us, from back in the day, from day one, and said, hey, make sure you know how to save, right? Take care of that money. Right. And then home ownership, So I got to see that firsthand with my folks back in the day. And we talked about it early on of what our goals wanted to be, and that was at the forefront. Say, hey, we're gonna talking about what we want us to be together, what we look like, and as we were planning and living with each other and moving on and moving up and talking about getting married one day, right? You said, look, but while we're doing that, it makes sense, especially with how the real estate market was back then. We're talking about 7 years ago, so it made sense to go and jump on and get a house right now.
That's what's up.
But what you got, J Man?
And I'm gonna take it. If you ain't listened to PDA, man, go back and listen to PDA.
Shout out to PDA,
man. I'm going back. I'm in the mode of Mike right now, man. I got a whole different perspective than all three of y'all, man.
Oh man,
talk to me nice though, man.
Hey, look, hey, it's no disrespect to everybody's walk of life is different. Everybody's belief is different. I'm not saying that you guys, believe anything different than me, but I came from a notion of and a belief of, waiting until I got married.
Old school, yeah.
Old school, man.
That's what my parents were.
Yeah, to move in, and I don't think it had nothing to do with pride or, my stuff, your stuff kind of thing. It was just my spiritual belief, and growing up, I'm a preacher's kid. So growing up, man, my dad he never like scolded me, or kept me away from what you guys have talked about. He said, if that's the route you go, then that's the route you go. He said, but he was just letting me know, like, if you're gonna fool around and lay around with women and doing all this, you need to go ahead and get married to one. That kind of thing, that whole lusting thing. If you're gonna lust, man, go ahead and marry someone. So you don't do all that. So I came from the background of, you have your space, you have your place, I got my place. When we get married, we'll move in. But I had this idea that, when I come over to your spot, you come over to my spot, it was, to me, that was like an audition in itself.
Of course, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I make it complete sense.
It's like an audition in itself, without saying it. It was like an audition, because my wife, she never, and that's another aspect to think about, the woman or the man pressuring you into knowing when it's time to move in. And my wife never did that. She never was like, so, you know, I keep coming over here, you know, or you keep coming over to my spot, you know, when we just gonna move in. Like, she never brought that up. I never brought it up. I think we were just living in the moment and getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And learning each other's quirks. And you know, of course you can't know everything, you know, because you're not like actually living together. But you get a good sense of like how she, you know, maintains her home.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? And she got a good sense from me for the most part. But you know, like it was good to be a part of that, but then also to be like, you know, I'm gonna leave and go back to my space and my time. So how do you know it's time? I knew it was time to move in with Cal when I proposed.
There you go.
You know? And that's just how I felt. I was like, when I proposed to her, you know, in 2017, it was just like, I knew it was time, because I think, because then by that time I knew all the boxes that I needed to be checked were checked.
Right.
I knew how she handled, you know, taking care of a home. I knew for the most part how she would be, you know, when it came to, you know, dishes or whatever the case was, you know, because I've had that time with her. You know, yes, we didn't live together, but when you're around someone enough, you kind of get the assumption or the idea of how it could possibly be. Because even if, like, you guys, even when y'all moved in together, you didn't honestly know how it was gonna be. You know, you have your assumptions.
Right. Clue, man.
Yeah. But things can change, you know.
Oh, no, bro, things do change, bro.
It do change.
Things do change.
Like for me, man, it was. I never had the urge, I guess, to put it that way. I never had the urge to be like, if I'm with you, like before Cal, I was with a woman for 4 years. I never had the urge to be like, yo, we gotta move in. Like, we've been together for 4 years, you know. But I think it comes to when you know.
Did Jimmy Mack with that? So it was no pressure from her end to be like, yo, what are we doing? None of that was ever broached with y'all in that situation.
No, sir. And I think for me, when I knew it was time, it was like, you know, because you're, like Mark said, I think it was Mark, you know, you building upon something. And when you're building something, you kind of know in your mindset when it's time, to a certain degree.
Right.
I think, you know, when you're building something up, like when you're starting to build, like you're starting to look at homes together, or think of how you want your house to look, or what area of Georgia you want to live in. Like those little things to me is like saying, okay, we're starting to have these conversations now. So now it's like, okay, now I'm starting to get this little itch. Like, okay, it might be time for me to propose and make this official. So,
right.
And kind of bounce off real quick what J Mac was saying. That's, bro, when the conversation starts changing, you know, that just the little things that kind of, it's kind of a precursor of what's to come next. Like, again, the natural stuff, you know, say, hey, what you think about this part of the town? What you think about, you know, what you like these restaurants, or, you know, what, you know, it's just little things that kind of adds up. And then it's kind of what we talked about today, right? Talking about, you know, everything when making major decisions, we're moving in and then moving up from there. Talking about, you know, for me, it was when I had no more excuses, right?
Yeah.
So,
right.
You know, so,
Look, wait. But you just took the words out of my mouth, Mark. No excuses, but don't give a false hope.
Ooh,
right? Yeah, that's just as bad. That's just bad.
I will be very transparent with you. I made that mistake. We were dating, and we started having those conversations about homes and all of that. So I thought, in my immature mind, let's go look at houses. So what were we doing? We out there looking at houses, and I'm trying to get a feel of what she likes.
Right.
And on my end, I'm like, you know, okay, she likes that. You know, am I cool with that? Am I, you know, that kind of thing, you know? Right. And next thing I know, I didn't realize I was getting her hopes up. Like, oh, we about to get this house.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I'm thinking I'm just trying to get.
Man, Jimmy, what you expect?
Right. Yeah, man.
What you expect, man?
Dude, I ain't lying. I ain't lying. Look, I told you, immature.
That's crazy.
I'm thinking, first of all, this my very first woman I've ever had a conversation like that with.
Right.
So I'm learning on the go. Like, oh, okay, so I can't just show you a house. Like,
Mark, hey, Jimmy Mack came out the gate hot, man.
Well, he did all the way,
multi-million-dollar home, Mark.
Bro, 0 to 100.
But then that conversation, then we had that conversation. It kind of busted a bubble. I was in the doghouse for a nice little minute, man.
Yeah.
But then again, when you know the person you're with and you know their heart,
there you go.
And you know what they were trying to do,
right?
You kind of the blow still hurts, but it kind of eases a little bit.
Right, it's lessened a little bit.
Right. And then it's like, okay, then the conversation, this might be going left, but then the conversation becomes, okay, let's communicate a little better,
right?
About what we're trying to do. So yeah, that's how it went. False hope, no more excuses.
Yeah, no, that's what's up, man. And another thing, on that note, man, I think that it could be a pride thing for me, or I think for most men, but I was just tired of playing house, man. Like, I mean, it almost seemed like make believe, like I said, like, I mean, she'd be over time after time, spending nights, I mean, having scrunchies over, or toothbrush or a comb and clothes. Shout
out to the scrunchies.
Y'all know what we're talking about.
So it's like, I think at some point there is, I mean, for me, it certainly was a gut feeling, but then it was also a thing of like, what are we doing? Like, this is just, it's kind of make believe right now. And, let's go ahead and make this, official. So I think that was another turning point as far as, knowing when it was time as well. When you kind of just like, I'm over the whole roommate type of feel and the whole, in and out type of like vibe, let's go ahead and make this anywhere closer towards, I guess, what that next milestone is for us, which is, which was marriage,
right, and
tying it down. So it's an interesting question, man. Interesting concept. So, dope stuff though, man. But Jimmy, your perspective is definitely unique. Very, very unique.
And with that too, man, what makes my situation unique as well. I'm an only child, so I'm used to having my own space.
Right.
Own everything. If I need to go somewhere and go off and not want to deal with anybody, I always had that option, man. So now when you bring somebody else into your space, I done bought this house, now I'm adding somebody in. It's almost like what Jimmy Mack said. It was almost for me, and I might have been doing it subconsciously, man, but it was just almost like a filling out process, like an audition. I don't hate to use that word, man. We might get some flack for that, but it is what it is. But I need to see if I'm compatible with this person. You can put on a front, or you can, what I'm saying? If I'm only with you for a couple of hours or whatever the situation may be, you can give me a facade of, something that you not really are. But when we are, cohabitating, or we in the same domicile, and I get to see you in your natural state, that gives me the mindset, okay, I can deal with this. Like, this is somebody that I can spend the rest of my life with. I can build with this person. And that was really important for me, and I guess this kind of counteracts what Jimmy Mack was saying, man, but that was really an important factor for me, before I even get to the point of us getting to the point where we getting engaged and married and stuff like that. I need to know how you live as a person. How are you clean? Do you, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what, what are your quirks? Or do you snore? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you leave the toothpaste off the cap off the toothpaste? Can I deal with that type of stuff? You know what I'm saying? So those things were important to me, Mark.
Do you put the dishes in the dishwasher in the
right? Yeah.
Shout out to Jimmy and that TikTok.
Shout out to Jay,
right?
There you go. Shout
out to Cali too. Tolerabilities, man. What are your tolerabilities, man?
It come down to habits, and bro, what are you willing to sacrifice? Like we talked about, bro. It's just, I think that's what it comes to the bigger pictures. Like, okay, we're bringing habits together, we're bringing lives together, right? Mm-hmm. To a certain extent. So, what are we willing to deal with, and what can I kind of fall back on to make sure that the house runs smoothly, right? Now that we live together. So, yeah, and I want to see everything. I mean, bro, everything is
right. Yeah, but I think for me, I think I know myself well enough to know what my deal breakers are. right? And even not living with someone, like I know what I can put up with. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I already knew, like, if she didn't leave the toothpaste on the cap or the cap on the toothpaste, I was cool with that. Like I knew ahead of time what I could deal with. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
I feel you, Zay. I feel you on that. Like what I'm saying. Like I'm not judging anybody, man. You know, you do what you do. As long as you are content and happy with your process,
right?
You know, I'm happy for you. You know.
Yeah, I think if I were an investment fund manager, I would say, Jimmy, you have a much higher risk tolerance than Mark, Zay, and myself. You know what I'm saying? I think that's really what it boils down to. So I mean, but that's incredible. I don't think that I could have done that, or move with that level of faith. But that's faith, man, and you know, and it worked out. You know, so
we commend them for that.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Hey. Now, bros, we're talking about how long is too long. How long is too long? And that can go either way. That can go all kind of angles. So. Let's chop it up, man. How long is too long? Let's go.
I think Mark should start off with this one. I think Mark had an interesting perspective from the first part. You know, just the timetable and the timeline for when you knew it was the right time to move in, Mark.
Yeah. I mean, so we kind of circling back to, you know, moving in theme. I mean, you know, we talking about you getting comfortable in natural progression of you being around more, and you know, during all this time in the process, you know, you already done met my family, right? They kind of giving you the vibe of you, are you feeling or not, you know? And then, you know, families are intermingling, everybody seeing how well if they gel, because in the back of your mind, as a man, especially, you know, as you getting older, right? You get into your late 20s, maybe even your early 30s, and you kind of, it's even talking about how women always have a clock, right? They're talking about they were born from the minute from commercials, from their families, to all the women in their family, right? Talking about what type of timeline you have for your life. When are you supposed to get married? When are you supposed to have kids, right? So as guys, you know, we're not, that's not in our dialect, right? That's not in our vocabulary of,
right.
You know, we came up. So it was more of just, you know, hopping in, getting a job, providing, you know, and then, you know, figuring out how to do everything else. So I mean, for me, you know, moving in and you know, working those habits through and you know, it was no set timeline on how long was too long at the time. Again, it was just kind of how organic it was, you know. Because like we guys was talking about earlier, you know, it's an audition, right? Every day is an interview process, you know.
Right.
Talking about you know, breaking down the habits, you know, how temperature settings, you know, are you cold nature, are you hot nature, you know, are you a foot person? I mean, it's just, bro, it's a whole bunch of different things we can go down into that, but you know, we're talking about.
So Mark, but when you say it wasn't no external pressure on you to make that move, basically.
Bro, not necessarily. No, I mean, we had conversations, you know, but no, it wasn't nothing bearing down on her family. Nothing come from my side. You know, it was just, you know, it was pretty smooth when it came to that. You know,
that's a blessing.
We both just got to that point, bro. It was, and it made everything, you know, much more easier, and to get into that step, saying, hey, we're ready, you know, to kind of move forward with our lives and what's next, right? So, like J Max said earlier, kind of conversation started changing. You know, we started talking about kids more. We started talking about where we wanted to live and what type of house we wanted to live. We start driving through neighborhoods randomly. You know, we out, you know, looking at houses, and you know, start talking about schools, and so when all those things start changing, bro, you know, it's just you know, that timeline when you initially moved into an apartment or wherever you moved into, you know, it kind of changes, you know, and move to the next step.
I agree with you, man. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in. We got married June 22nd, man, of 2018. It was, we moved in together, man. I think we knew before we got married, we knew that we weren't gonna be in an apartment home. You know, we knew, we had that in our mindset. We moved into an apartment together, and that was my very first experience, not her first experience, but my first experience of living with someone other than a family member.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. So, but to have, like we talked about earlier, the conversations changed, and now we're sitting here talking about, you know, what's our timeline, how long we want to stay in an apartment, and then the sacrifices that need to be made in order to get the home
that you want,
Right.
Or for those, some people do believe in starter homes. There are some people who don't. They say, you know what, my first home is my forever home. And I was in that mindset too, but my wife has got me to think, what happens when your family grows?
Yeah.
Man,
there you go.
Or your job.
You grow in life, professionally, and everything else.
Right.
Personally,
right? And then you think about like me and Mike were talking about earlier today, man. About your profession. How you sometimes you have to tip your hat and go another direction, right? So when you do that, that may take you out of your neighborhood, your community.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to think about travel. That plays a role. So I'm learning all of that. I'm learning all of that as I go, man. So when you have that conversation with your wife, man, about how long we want to stay in an apartment, and then also being mindful of situations do happen to where your timeline, let's say, as an example, we're gonna stay in this apartment 2 years. What happens when you get 2 years? You may have lost a job, God forbid, or may have gotten demoted and not promoted.
Right.
That kind of thing. All that stuff plays a role. Like you have in your mindset your projection, right?
Right.
But things happen, life happens, and how do you adapt to that? And if you're really in it together, then you'll find another way around it, right?
That's it.
So we were able
teamwork, man.
You know what I'm saying? We were able to, link up with a good person who helped us out with the home that we're in now. But it definitely makes you grow up.
Yeah. Sure.
Talk about how long is too long, man. I wasn't pressured like what Zadie was asking Mark. I was never pressured, but I got questioned a lot, about whether, do y'all want to move into a home? Do y'all want to stay in an apartment? This is like after, I think probably not even 6 months after we got married.
Ooh.
It was like
that sounded like pressure, bro. I don't know about
that.
Yeah,
I was like,
I don't know if it was really pressure. I guess my definition of pressure is like you like constantly asking. I guess for me it was almost like they're trying to have small talk in a sense, but
trying to get the feelers out.
Like they're trying to fill out, what we doing, trying to be nosy possibly, but I never thought. I knew that it wasn't going to be long, but then again, going to the question, how long is too long? I think we all can agree to some degree that it's predicated on you and your spouse, or you and your significant other, because when you start to allow others from around the perimeter of your establishment to dictate, the longevity, that can bring in some problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Your process is your process, man.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah. So.
Yeah. 100%.
You think, Mike?
Man, I'm gonna echo exactly what Jimmy Mack just said, man. And I think when it comes down to how long is too long, it's more of a question. That's a question that should be answered between yourself and your spouse, or the individuals in it, and not a question to be answered by society, your family, friends, or everyone else, because it really does determine. It does depend on your individual timeline and your individual objectives and what you guys want, as a collective, as a unit. So I don't think there's a real answer to that. I think you have to look within amongst yourselves individually as a couple, and determine that. And that's what me and mine did. There are some physical components that when we talk chronologically that do factor into it, because Mark mentioned like a time clock. There really is a biological time clock, and things where there's a lot of research and data that supports prolonging or procrastinating. If children is something that you want to do, and of course if you want to go the traditional route, marriage would need to come before that. So of course there are some things that are plotted from a sequential standpoint on that timeline, that will that I guess objectively speaking would determine how long too long may be for you as an individual. But again, that's still something that should be answered amongst yourselves, and so I think objectively there is an answer to how long is too long if you're looking at it from a biological standpoint, but outside of that, it really is a question more or less, you know, for the couple and the individuals, and not for anyone else to necessarily answer. Although that's how society, you know, pits it, you know, for a lot of people. You know, growing up, there was a little patty cat game, whatever, you know, that said first come love, then come marriage, then come, you know, something in a baby carriage. And, you know, I think everybody believes that that's the order of how life should be. And, you know, it should follow in that manner. But, you know, as far as the timeline too, is that, again, I think that's something that should be answered and addressed, you know, between the individuals, and there's no right or wrong to it at all. And I mean, if there's anything I should put out there, I would put out there for y'all and for the listeners is, you know, don't allow, you know, everyone else to dictate or to determine that. Don't allow that to become a pressure or pressure point for you. As far as, you know, am I moving too fast or am I moving too slow? It's really no right or wrong. You know, just kind of go with what you know, y'all agree on and what works for y'all. And you know, I think, you know, everybody be okay.
I totally agree. I think if you can't let other people dictate how you elevate, right?
There you go. You
can't do it, because I've been in situations where in my previous relationships where we go out with other people and you hear the other couple. You ever been out with your wife or your spouse while you were dating, and you hear other couples talk about what they're doing and how they're progressing.
Yeah. And, and they're almost bragging about it, right?
Right. And then you get back in the car with your wife, your spouse, and then that conversation, you know, it's coming.
Yeah, you know it's coming.
Like, because now what happens is now you start to say, well, so and so they getting married. They've only been together for 2 months.
Compare. We compare.
Right. They getting married. Or they just met last week, you know, he already proposed because he knew.
Right.
Like Mike said.
Why you don't know?
Exactly. It's like Mike said, man. You can't allow outside. And it's no disrespect to them, but everybody has their opinion about your situation. But it's about what you, but it's really about what you and your significant other decide as a couple. And I hope and pray, like Mike said, that the listeners who are listening, man, I hope and pray that you don't allow the outside people, even family, to
most especially family,
right, to dictate how you move in your relationship. Because at the end of the day, who are you laying down with? You know,
there it is. You
hit the nail on the head with that one right there.
Yeah.
So, Mark, what you got, Mark?
Bro, I mean, that's all facts. I mean, we're talking about. It's just fun that you mentioned family, bro, because that's you talking about gelling families, and they seeing what you guys got going on. They want the best for you, right? Or at least that's what we get the vibe on, right? That's what we're seeing, right? Because they may be talking about something different behind our backs, and that's a whole nother.
We hope that's all we hope.
A whole nother episode, bro. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. So to get to that point where, and I think it's funny, you got some family members, or even friends that try to give you relationship advice, but their relationship is trash, right? Or they not married themselves, or they divorced.
Or they're not even following the advice they're giving you.
Right. You know, it's like I'm taking advice from you, but what you got going on? What's your situation looking like? You know.
Hey, I ain't gonna put it out there, man. But there was a word that I heard earlier this morning, man, from a gentleman, and he said it best, man. He said everybody they'll tell you how to do it, but they never did it, or they'll tell you what to do. But they can't do it, you know what I'm saying? And I mean that resonated, man. And I think that's
deep, though.
You know, I'll go ahead. Mike talking about.
Shout out to Jimmy Mack.
So look,
shout out to Jimmy Mack, man.
Real talk. If you think about it and take that quote and put it into this situation.
Yeah.
You know, there are many, not a lot of people, but there are a good number of people who want to tell you how to do your situation with your spouse, but they don't have nothing to back it up on their end.
Yeah.
How you gonna tell me how to work something that you can't work?
You can't work. Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy, man.
You know, I'm like, you want to give me marital advice with my wife, but no offense, but you've had 4 or 5.
Step on toes, man. Step on some toes. That's all right.
On your 5th marriage.
I'm not saying that all your advice is invalid.
Right.
But I can get more out of it by speaking to someone who's been together, who's still together.
Right, still together. That's
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years versus someone who's in and out of a marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
More valuable. Yeah.
Right. Zay, speak on that, bro. Speak on that. I know we were talking about it, Zay, like external pressure, bro, but you know, as guys, at some point we may talk about internal pressure, right? Things
right.
You start thinking about what needs to happen. Well, speak on that, bro, a little bit.
Right. You know, and for me, you know, what we talked about in the first half of the episode, man, is just, you know, when I met my wife, it was just a different feeling. You know, Mark know me and Mark, you know, ran in the same circles at Albany State, you know. It wasn't a shortage of, you know, students that we had, man. But, you know, when you come to, you know what I'm saying, a realization that, okay, I'm done playing games. This is who I want to build with, you know, let's get on the same page. Like Jimmy Mack said, what can we do? And we started off I was already ahead of the game. You know, I already had my household. It was a thing of, you know, making sure that she was comfortable with the situation that she was getting involved with.
Right.
So I take a little bit different perspective from you three guys, man.
Let me pin it right there. Let me pin it right there.
Okay.
Because y'all don't know, Mike and Mark may not know this, man. I met Zay during a pancake social, man.
Right.
Pancake social.
Pancake social for Morris Brown, man.
Right.
So
Whoa.
the woman he's married to is my near and dear, you know, cousin, man. So it's like it's like when I've been with Sadria's relationships probably the last 2 or 3 before Zadrian.
Yeah.
So I've been involved to a certain degree. You know, Sadria will let you know what you need to know, kind of thing, right?
Right, everything, right? You ain't...
So like I knew about her last few relationships. So and how they ended, and what she went through. So here, you know, you think about when we talk about the outside people.
Right.
In comes this new guy, you know, Zadrian Miley. And he comes in, man. We had the Applebee's on Cascade Road, man.
Oh shit!
I got my wife with, well, at that time, my girlfriend, and he comes in, man. And I ain't gonna lie to you. The first start, real talk, I'll be transparent. I was like, I don't know. I don't know how long this one gonna go for. No,
that's real.
See, that was immature and wrong of me, because I'm thinking about what's happened in the past and how many times has that happened. You know, in our situations where someone who knows your past or knows what you've been through.
I wouldn't even say that was wrong or immature, man. I think
exactly.
I wouldn't even say that, you know. But
you know what? But then after I met him, it was like, you know what? I said, let me not do that, because it's no fault on him. You know, he's coming into this, so let me just see what he's about. And I knew he was a good guy from the real talk. From the first conversation we had at that table. I was like, this guy, there's something different about this one. There's something different about this one. And then on top of that, my wife, they clicked.
Just like that.
Like that from Albany State. And I was like, oh,
there you go.
Right. Shout out to ASU, man. You were surrounded, Jimmy Mack. You surrounded.
Yeah.
You know, but how easily people will tell you, like, you know, about somebody without knowing them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and it goes back to what we've all said collectively. It's between you and yours.
There you go.
Right.
You know, like, yes, you may not like that person. You may know that's not your type, but that ain't, you know, I respect your opinion, but let me make mine. And if I decide to fall on my face because of my decision, that's on me.
That's on you, man.
You know,
definitely.
So
that's on you.
Yeah.
Nah, good stuff, man. Good stuff, fellas.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm gonna flip it a little bit just to kind of, you know, spice up the discussion.
Oh boy.
If y'all had to, I mean, we already know the answer. We went around, we answered this ourselves, and I think we all unanimously agree as far as, you know, how long is too long, and that being, you know, determined by, you know, you and yours, and for the audience, you and yours. But if you absolutely had to, right, let's kind of add a few variables to it, right? So person A, person B, you know, person B, a 38-year-old woman, who wants to at some point get married and have children. You know, how long would be
right
too
now?
long?
Like right now.
Yeah. How long would be too long, you know, for her boyfriend at the time, you know, to propose if they wanted to go the traditional route, meaning, you know, get married and you know, have a child. You know, how long would be too long for her boyfriend if she really, you know, really, if, you know, they want kids.
Right. And see, Mike, I think that's a real touchy subject, man, because it's to me, that's you compounding the situation. There's a lot of pressure. She's already, you know what I'm saying, a seasoned woman. She's 38 years old.
On that clock.
Yeah, so you putting yourself in a pressure cooker already. This is gonna be a warp size relationship. We going from 0 to 100. So as a potential suitor in that situation, you got to realize, you got to be accepting of the fact that, like, this is not going to be a normal relationship. This is going to be, not what I'm used to. This timeline is going to be sped up. Am I comfortable with that? That's the question you got to ask yourself from the jump. For me personally, I don't know, y'all might have different opinions, because what that comes with a lot.
Speak on.
You might not be comfortable with that timeline, and then that comes a rift in the house.
Right.
So, I don't know how you feel about it, Jimmy Mack and Mark. That's just my point of view on that, man.
Go ahead, Mark.
Bro, kind of like what J-Mac was saying earlier, man. You're talking about how his cousin had, 2 or 3 relationships before, Zay came through. All of that kind of compounds and adds to what you're stepping into the situation, right? So, it's not fair, but it's real, right? So, now your girl, your lady is 3 or 4, 5, 6 years older. She's more seasoned, right? She knows what she doesn't want. Absolutely not what she's gonna deal with anymore, right?
Sure.
So you stepping in like, okay, well, these are the expectations that she has without me even knowing necessarily why.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So what are you willing to kind of work around and work through, and kind of bringing her to your book, so y'all can eventually get on that same page, kind of
right.
Right.
And so today's topic is a hot one, and we're talking about, how do you know it's time? Think about the situation where you're with your spouse or your significant other, and you're making moves together. Everything is going well, but those conversations start to get a little bit more serious in your walk with your significant other. So the question on the table, fellas, is how do you know that it's time to move in? When do you know? And how do you know it's time to move in?
That's heavy, Jimmy Mack.
That's a big one, man. Man, for some of us, man, I mean, we may know, just by the look that she gives us. I mean, that's
Speak on it, bro. Speak on
sometimes it may just be that look, but on a serious note, man, I think it's a case by case, individualized basis, as far as knowing when. But I think once it's certainly, at least for me, it was an innate feeling. It was something that you have to feel, within yourself, and you feel within your heart, to know, because that's an undertaking that you have to take on. So I think that it's really like